So good afternoon, everyone. I warmly welcome you to the Colombo International Book Fair. My name is Danuka Dikpella. I'll be your moderator in moderating an author's talk. And let me remind you the organizers first. Neptune Goodreads with Metareads and the publishing house Simon Schuster will be the organizers of this event. And I'm hoping to introduce a globally acclaimed author to the Sri Lankans and everybody who is online with us. She's a well-known author, a British author specializing on the children's books. I think the moment I mention the name of the book, you will know her. Skandar and the Unicorn Thief is the name of the book that has become a global sensation. And F. Steadman, also known as Annabelle Steadman, is the author. Annabelle, welcome to the Colombo International Book Fair. Hi.
Hello, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
So it's a pleasure, and I'll use a Sri Lankan term to welcome you. We say, Ayubowan, may you live long. So once again. And first of all, I would like to ask you a few things. How would you like to describe yourself? Can you give us a very brief introduction about who you are?
Of course. So I am A.F. Steadman, Annabelle, and I have been wanting to be an author since I was maybe 8 years old. And I read a lot of fantasy books when I was growing up. I was always in the library borrowing them, and but then as I got older, I think you know, people said, "Oh, do you want to be an author? Maybe being a lawyer, that would be a more sensible career for you." So I became a lawyer after I went to the university. I went to university in Cambridge, and I became a lawyer, but I still really wanted to be an author as well. And so in 2017, I started a master's in creative writing. And it was kind of during that time that I started working on the idea for Skandar. But I did have the idea kind of quite a few years before that. So it'd been in my head for a while. So yeah, that's how I got to this point.
Well, we would like to know your journey as an author. I'm sure you did like an adult fiction beforehand, before you did this book, and from that to you know, ups, downs, failures, up to this. How was it? How was your journey like?
Yeah, I think it's always important to talk about the kind of journey of it, because I think when your book goes, you know, it's gone well, which is good. Everyone just thinks that happened, you know, overnight. Suddenly you wrote the book and then it's in the shops and everything's wonderful. But yeah, so the first book I wrote was a book for adults, and that was also when I was studying for my creative writing masters. It was about lawyers. So I think maybe it was a bit of a book to process what I've been doing. It was very different. And it was kind of about family law, so divorce and children. So very, very different from Skandar. But with that book, I got my agent. So my first agent, I have a different agent now. So I got my first agent, and it was very exciting. They sent it out to all the publishers. And nobody wanted it. No one. Everyone turned it down. I spent about 9 months with it out, with editors reading it, and then they turn it down for 9 months. So at that point, I think I was thinking about, is this the right thing for me? Thinking about giving up. But I did have this other manuscript that I'd written about bloodthirsty unicorns. So there was something about it that I didn't want to give up on that. So I sent it to a different agent who did more children's books, who's my agent now. And I only sent it to one because I'd been rejected so many times that I thought, I don't want to be rejected anymore. So I just sent it to one agent, and he really liked it. And we had a meeting for about 3 hours where he just told me all the things that he didn't like about it, about Skandar, which I was just like, yes, you know, I want you to tell me how I can improve my writing, because I'd gone through this process where I just didn't understand what was wrong with the book before, the adult book. So it was something that I wanted, someone honest, someone who could give me kind of constructive feedback. So then I kind of rewrote quite a lot of Skandar, and then it was also COVID, so I had a little bit more time. And then the book was sent out in September 2020 to publishers. And obviously I thought everyone was going to turn it down, because that had been my experience before. So, you know, it was a moment, it was very, very, I wasn't stressed, but I was like, this is the last time I'm doing this, which is silly, because that's not true. I would have kept doing it over and over again. But I think at that moment, I love the book so much. And I thought, if I don't get to write this series, then it's going to be really, really hard to write something else. But then within 2 days, we had an offer from the first publisher, and my agent didn't even have my number. So he emailed me saying, you know, could I have your number, because I need to talk to you about something. And then he gave me the first offer that had come in, and I was just, I couldn't believe it. I think that was the only time I cried was at that point. And the first offer wasn't one from Simon & Schuster. It was, you know, lower, because then we went to auction. But it was just that moment of someone is going to make this into a book, because someone has offered to. So yeah, it was really wonderful. And then in the same week, the film rights sold as well. So it was a bit of a shock to me, because I honestly, I didn't expect it, because I'd kind of experienced that journey of my writing being rejected before.
Well, it sounds like a real story for a book. It's quite a story.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, you should. So with that, I would like to ask you, you know, I mean, I'm sure everybody is very excited to know the synopsis of this. I mean, you know, could you please run through, you know, a little bit of what Skandar is? Just give us a brief of why there's so much of hype for this book among, you know, adults and children alike.
Okay,
what
yeah.
this
So
book is about.
yeah, so the Skandar series, the first book is Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, and it's set in a world of warrior unicorns, elemental magic, and unlikely heroes. So the main character is Skandar Smith, who is 13 years old, and he lives on the mainland, where there aren't any unicorns, but he is desperate to become a unicorn rider on the island. And as a fantasy setup, it's slightly different from what you might expect, because in lots of fantasy books, the kind of fantasy world is hidden. But in Skandar, everybody knows that the unicorns exist. Everyone knows there's elemental magic, and there's this exam that you have to take to get to access the world, which I kind of liked playing with the idea of being left behind as well. So Skandar's sister is a year older than him, and she also really wanted to become a unicorn rider, but she failed the exam. So that's the kind of entry point to the story, where Skandar is about to take this exam. His sister's failed it, and they're watching this race on TV, the Chaos Cup. That's the foundation of the unicorn riders. That it's a big race, takes place every year. Everyone watches it on TV, on the mainland and on the island. So it's kind of a showcase of elemental magic within chapter 1. So Skandar goes on a journey he's not quite expecting. He's one of those characters where it was important to me that he wasn't just the hero. You know, he's not really how you'd expect a hero to be at the beginning. He has to grow quite a lot. He's bullied at school. He's not that brave. His sister's probably braver than him, but he does have a very good heart, and he kind of uses that to navigate his life on the island. And of course, he finds a group of friends there. There's lots of big themes like friendship and grief, and also kind of finding your place in the world when you're not really sure where that is, and standing up for the right thing to do. And it also has a lot of tree houses in it, because they're on the island. There are wild unicorns, which are the worst kind. They're rotting, they're dying forever, they're immortal, but they also stampede around. So everyone has to live off the ground so they don't get squashed by the wild unicorns. So there's this tension between the wild unicorns and the bonded unicorns with riders, and learning how to use your elemental magic. And as the series goes on, the characters get older. So Skandar and his friends are 13 in the first one, and then they're kind of 14 in the next one. And so it's the years of training at the rider training school that we're watching. And of course, the action and the adventure gets even more high stakes in Skandar and the Phantom Rider, I think, the second one.
That's a great, like plot. So next question is, what is about the name? I was, why did you select the name Skandar? I was so intrigued, so I did a small research and I found out that Skandar is in fact Iskandar or Alexander in Arabic, and it represents the person who defends men. So what is it about the name? Why did you select this particular name?
Yeah, it's a funny. I think I thought of the name first. I thought of it really early, and I think so. My brother is called Alexander. I've got two brothers, younger brothers, and he went through this phase when he was growing up of trying to call himself cooler names. So he was like, "Oh, I'm going to be called Xander, or I'm going to be called Al, or I'm going to be called Skandar," and that was one of the ones that he found somewhere. I don't know where. So he started trying to call himself that for a while, and everyone was like, "No, you can't. You're just Alex. You're just, carry on." So yeah, I think that's where it first came from. But then when we were looking for, I was editing the book, I noticed that it was a name that was in lots of different cultures and in lots of different languages, kind of in different permutations. So I think in the end, it's worked really well for the book, because it is published in so many languages as well. That it's a name, it was easily translatable, but it's even though it stays the same. So I think it worked out well, and it sounds like an epic name, although Smith, his surname, is quite like a basic name here, like it's a kind of staple name, Smith. So I balanced it out.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant mix. A name from a legend and a very modern surname to go with. And I'm sure it has a big appeal in this part of the world, especially because every name has a meaning especially in South Asia and Asian continent, for that matter. So my next question is, the stories we have heard, especially about fairy tales or anything to do with children's, there's always a moral message. And, we have been taught why it is important for good to win, why it is important for evil to be conquered. So my first question, there's two questions on this. The first one is like, what is the moral message? Is it about good winning, or what exactly is the moral message? And the second thing is, I think there's so much of dramatization of Skandar's journey, and his victory is not an easy one. So he has to go through a lot of difficulties, and he has to steadfastly believe in his courage and not giving up. So is that also kind of a message that you're giving, and for him to believe in his cause? So can you just give an idea about that?
Yeah, of course. I think I suppose the moral message in I think across the books, really. I'm now writing the fourth one. I'm almost finished. So I've got a good idea of that. I think what keeps coming back is this idea that if we work together, then that makes us stronger. in the first book, Skandar, if he'd been on his own, I don't think he would have actually saved the day. You know, he's got this group of friends who they support him in different ways. They're all very different, and they complement each other. You know, one of them's very confident and she rushes in all the time, and one of them's very sensitive, more emotional, and another one's very kind of intellectual. And then, you know, Skandar's got this kind of raw bravery, and I think altogether they are very capable of saving the world and, you know, vanquishing the villain. But on your own, I think it's harder, and it kind of, I think, yeah, working together for sort of the aim of kind of vanquishing the villain, I suppose, is what keeps coming back. But I think something that I've noticed, and particularly maybe with Phantom Rider, the second book, is actually forgiveness is a really big theme in the book, because there are things that happen, that people fall out, really serious things. I don't want to give anything away, particularly within the sibling relationship between Skandar and his sister, and that kind of they learning how to forgive someone for what they've done because you understand why they've done it, and I think, and because you love them, and they're sorry. And I think I wanted to kind of show that not everybody's perfect. I think that's a big moral of it. You know, no one is a kind of like, Skandar is not perfect. He gets things wrong. He's scared sometimes. And I wanted to kind of show that to children, because I think sometimes they put a lot of pressure on themselves, particularly nowadays, to be the best, and they worry about their exam results and all that kind of thing. And actually sometimes it's okay if something goes wrong. It's just how you deal with it after that, and how you approach it, and what kind of person you are. And I think Skandar's a very kind character, and I wanted a main character who showed a lot of kindness towards other people, because I think that goes a long way. But yeah, he does have a lot of things to face, lots of drama. I've put him in lots of positions which makes his life difficult, and I think for me, I suppose not giving up is a big part of the series, because I almost gave up on the books themselves a few times. You know, this book sat on my computer for a very long time, which now filled me with horror. But it sat there, and I thought to myself, is it good enough? Am I good enough? You know, and that doesn't go away even when your book is published. You have to keep fighting through that when you're writing more books and trying to make them better. So I suppose through Skandar as well, in all his trials, there's something behind that from me as well.
Well, I think the moral message is great for kids and adults alike. There's a lot to learn, and especially in this time of the era. So next question is, do you have a specific scenario or a quote that you always will remember, or is like your favorite?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think I think when I'm getting very, you know, if I'm getting stressed about, I'm quite a relaxed person, but, you know, with Skandar, quite a lot of big things have happened, which, you know, I wasn't expecting. And I am an introvert, and I've had to do lots of events and talking to thousands of children. And so sometimes I kind of like to say to myself, it's only unicorns, you know, it is only unicorns. It's not life or death. It is okay. And so that lets me take a step back from it and think this is a story, and then how, you know, and keep it in perspective, I think, sometimes, because when your whole job is about one series at the moment, it can sometimes feel like everything is about that. So it's nice to take a step back. But I think I used to collect quotes, I think, when I was younger. So I've got all these really, really strange quotes about, you know, not giving up and all that kind of thing. And I do think that that's important. But I suppose one of the things I think about the most is what children say to me at events. I think those, when I meet them at signings and things like that, particularly children who don't, often they have not read books before, you know, with, you know, they maybe read some kind of like picture books, but they haven't read a book like Skandar, which is like the length of it and the breadth of it. And so when they say, you know, this is the first book that I've actually read, I suppose that's very inspiring as a quote from a child, because that makes me want to make the books better every time so that they keep enjoying them.
Fantastic. So do you, I mean, you know, this is a very special area of fantasy. So to do this, did you have to do like a research on, you know, unicorns or ancient folklore? How did you get your knowledge on this? I mean, what did you do for that?
So I would love to say yes, I did loads of research, but I did not. I think there was sometimes there can be a danger in that, because you end up sort of lifting things from your research and almost like repurposing them into the book, which sometimes works. But I think for this, I wanted it to feel really organic. So the magic is kind of the elemental magic on the island is the foundation for everything. And so every time I made something up, or every time I built something, I'd be bringing it back to, does that fit with the island? I think with Skandar, it's all about, does this feel real enough? You know, yes, there are bloodthirsty unicorns, but that's a given. But everything surrounding it, does it feel like you could go there? Because those are the books that I used to love, the ones where you think, maybe it's real, maybe it is real, maybe next year we're all going to have to take that exam. And I think I like to think about every step of it. So the research didn't come in until actually I started preparing to do my school events. And so then I started looking up things about unicorns, and it was really interesting to look it up after the unicorns of Skandar had been created, and look at the kind of evolution of them, because unicorns, you know, they have not always been fluffy and friendly and full of rainbows. There are lots and lots of depictions of them that are really horrible through the years. So I think it's interesting that I'd obviously heard that and picked it up in my mind, and that sort of got me to the Skandar unicorns. But yeah, an elemental magic, I think, is something that I really was careful not to research too much, because there's a lot of fantasy with elemental magic, and people have said to me like, oh, have you seen Avatar? And I haven't seen that, but I know that that's kind of based in elemental magic as well. So I tried not to. I tried to make it my own, but I have since researched unicorns, and it is really interesting.
So the next question is about your the themes. Like now you selected fantasy to tell your story. So I have two things to know. Like, why did you select fantasy in your storytelling? And I mean, I always wonder, like, you know, like fantasies are being read by children and adults alike. So there's a fine line you have to walk where it has to be appealing for children, and the adults could still read and you know, be in this fantasy world. So would you like to you know, guide us through that? Like the first thing is why fantasy as your form of storytelling, and how you define, how you walk this very thin fine line differentiating between adults and children?
Yeah, I think fantasy, the answer to that is, I think I love fantasy, and I think it's the genre that I've read the most of. But I think also I wanted to explore kind of, sometimes they're difficult themes, or they're slightly more adult themes, which kind of goes into your second question. And I think fantasy is a really lovely way to do that, because you're in this fun world where there's unicorns and magic, but there are kind of very real things happening with friendships, or with kind of family, or with how, you know, one of the characters, for example, is really anxious, and she has panic attacks, and you wouldn't expect that from that character, and within this kind of fantasy context. And I think the fantasy context kind of means that you can explore those themes, but in a slightly lighter way, because it's not all about kind of someone whose mum has died, for example, but that's just part of the context. And it means that you know, when children are reading it, they can maybe ask questions about those things. They might be reading it with a parent or a guardian and say, oh, you know, at school this actually happened to this person, or at school someone's really jealous, or so it's a nice way to get them kind of into the story, but also introduce those themes kind of in a layering way, so that they can engage with them as much as they want to, I suppose. I mean, really, it's a trap. But yeah, and so I think that, and the fantasy with the kind of the children, writing for children and adults, I think I never sat down to write this book and said to myself, this is a children's book. I never did that at the start. You know, I picked 13 because it felt like a transitional age where you were learning lots about yourself, because it is a coming of age kind of book. But I think I always wanted the mythology to be multi-layered. So I suppose there's lots in there that maybe a child of 8 might not quite understand in terms of themes or the kind of layers in it, but it's there for the adults, I suppose. And one of the examples of that is the immortality parts of it. So the wild unicorns are immortal, and they're dying forever, and they're very, very angry about that. And a child might think, you know, they might understand it, but a child might think, oh, you know, oh, they're really gross and they're like really cool. But an adult might be thinking, this is quite, you know, this is about immortality and the meaning, and putting meaning in life, because the wild unicorns have no meaning in their life. They have no connection. And it's, you know, how terrible would it be to live forever if you didn't have anyone to share it with? And that's quite a complex kind of part of it. And I always want it to work on 2 levels. So they're not just, the children aren't like bored when you're talking about that because they've got rotting unicorns to get excited about, you know, that I think it's thinking, how does this work on multiple levels? And, you know, as they get older, they'll understand more as well. So yeah, it's a difficult balance, and it's something that me and my editors work on really hard, because I want everyone to enjoy it for as long as they can.
Well, that's very true, because it's a difficult walk. Is not the easiest one. So I have to give a very fair and advanced warning for our participants here. After 2 questions, it will be your turn to ask a couple of questions from Annabelle. Is that all right if I call you Annabelle?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so my next question would be, I mean, you know, it's when we tell stories, there is always some kind of relevance to our real life. So Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, it's fantasy, all right, but do you have anything that was very connected to your life that you wanted to tell the world?
I mean, I think that one of the parts of the book which is connected to me is that Skandar grows up in a family where they don't have very much money, and that was similar to me. And I think you don't always see the detail of that in children's books, and the kind of the struggles that his family are going through. And they're a single parent family as well, and that's the same as me. So I think I wanted to show that for children who have that as well, and the idea that, you know, they're looking after their dad, and sometimes that means that they can't do things at school that maybe they want to do because they have to prioritize him over being a child, and that's a big part of Skandar's background and why he is the way he is, because he has had to kind of put other people first before himself, even at a very young age. So I really wanted to put that in. And I think also the sibling relationship as well between Skandar and his sister is something that I'm very close with my brothers. And I'm the oldest girl, so the same as Kenna in Skandar. And I was thinking to myself, how annoyed would I be if my brothers got to go to a unicorn island and I got left behind? And, you know, and it would be that really hard thing of, you'd be really happy for them, and you would wish them well, but you'd be so sad that they were gone, and you'd be really jealous. And so, like with Kenna, that's the kind of complicated cocktail of emotions that she's going through. And I tried to put myself in that position, like as an older sibling, and kind of that, I think that kind of has helped to make her character rounder, because she becomes more important as the series goes on.
All right. And the last question before I pass it to the audience. So would you like to give a heads up on the next volumes, like, like a spoiler, like how will it continue?
Oh, okay. So I can't tell you the title yet, but we're almost showing the cover for book 3. But I think for the third book, you get to learn a lot more about the island itself. So it's sort of, if you think of it, the book as a kind of camera lens, it's sort of like going out a little bit. So in book 3, they spend a lot of time in the elemental zones. So the characters get to kind of experience the raw magic of the island in a way. And it's I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but yeah, book 3 is there's lots and lots of kind of challenges and things they have to face within the zones themselves and with the magic. So I think hopefully people will really like them. There are some very competitive elements to it, I'll say that.
So you have to keep inventing different challenges for Skandar. Not an easy thing to do, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be, by the end, very tired.
So let me give an opportunity to one of our listeners to ask you a question.
Thank you, Danica. Hi, Annabelle. Actually, I'm Pramodit. I'm myself an author. So I don't know whether you are aware of or not how obsessed our kids are these stories. In South Asia, especially, this is one of the biggest markets for English children books. So one request is, I just want to clarify whether these volumes been translated into South Asian languages so far.
Yeah, so I don't think that they've come out yet, but I think the publishers are working on a couple of those. So they should. I think the deal happened. I think it happened maybe a year, like 6-8 months ago, something like that. I know that I was told about that. But Simon Schuster India will know more about that than me at the moment. And then I'll get told about it once they're ready to come out. But I will definitely make sure I share on my social media when that happens. I always try and share all the different editions that are coming out in different languages. So I'm AF Steadman author on Instagram. So you'll see it there once it's going to come out. We should have early editions and they'll share. So yeah, I know they're working really hard to try and get kind of more translation into the South Asian languages, definitely.
Right. And and also I'm curious about, now that all of these symbols and all these mythical animals and etc. actually are coming from the Western world. We have also, in the southern part of the world, we have our mythology and we have mythical animals who were very close to our ancestors, etc. But they have slipped away from our current literature. So have you ever thought about any sort of, like, getting a character from outside Britain or Europe into your fictions? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've always wanted to try and make the cast of Skandar kind of as different as possible, but the trouble is it's kind of like an island off the UK, and so I can't, and everyone kind of comes from the mainland, so it's very hard to kind of get them in. But one of the things that I'm hoping to kind of work on a little bit more is that there's the origin story of the island, which is when the first rider kind of like starts populating the island with people. And I certainly imagined that when that happens, that those people come from all over the world, which is why there is kind of diversity on the island itself in the origin story. So, but I think it would be nice after I finish Skandar to maybe write another series, which gives me a little bit more geographical freedom than the island itself, which is like all very centered in one place. So, but yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you so much. That's all from my side.
Thanks.
And do we have any more questions from the audience? So before we winding up, I have two more questions. And just to add to Pramodit's question, I mean, not a question, but then these are exotic lands where there's so much of mystery and mystic world literature is there. So that's something that you can really find very different aspects. So my next question is for the Sri Lankan up and coming authors. As an author who has gone through the entire channel, what is your message for for an up and coming author in Sri Lankan context and in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that, I mean, I suppose it would be don't give up fundamentally. I think, just because you write a book that nobody wants to buy at the start, it doesn't mean you're a bad writer, and it doesn't mean you can't be an author, because so much of publishing a book is about luck, and it's also about finding the right story for you, and it's about finding the right story for the audience. So there's a lot going on there that has nothing to do with your ability as a writer. And I think it's important not to be too hard on yourself when you get those rejections, because rejection is a huge part of being an author. It still happens when they've come out. You don't win every prize. Sometimes you'll pitch ideas and people won't be interested in that. So I think learning to kind of live with that and learn from the rejection, rather than taking it as something that's personal to your writing and your ability, is something that I know really hard, and I found that really hard. But I think that will make you a better writer, and if you keep going and you keep turning up to your desk or wherever you write, eventually you will write something that's the right thing for you and the right thing for the market as well. And I think I do believe in that, and I think it's important not to judge yourself too harshly if you have some rejection along the way.
Okay. I mean, that's a life learning message for everybody who is an aspired author. So the last question would be, what would be your message for the fans, your Sri Lankan fans, in time to come, and who have already read, and because I'm sure people love to read this type of books, and there's so much of interest in it. So what's your message for the Sri Lankans?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, just thank you for reading them, and thank you for kind of being fans of the series, because as an author, it just means so much that people are reading it and it's connecting with you. And I would really love to come to Sri Lanka at some point. Lots of people got really excited because when I posted about this event, they thought I was actually coming. So I now know that people would be excited if I go. So I would love to meet people, but thank you for believing in the bloodthirsty unicorns, I guess, because without you there wouldn't be a series, and I wouldn't be able to keep writing them. So thank you very much.
So of course, the Sri Lanka awaits you. It's an exotic island, like probably the one that we have mentioned in your book. So there's so much of things that for you to discover here, and we would love to see you traveling around. And Annabelle Steadman, it was such a pleasure having you with us today in this prestigious event, the International Book Fair, Colombo Book Fair. And I wish you all the very best and your series, and I hope you keep writing and providing this beautiful literature for kids and adults alike. And all the best from Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much. Thank you for amazing questions. It's been so good. Thank you.
It's a true pleasure. So let me also just kindly remind our organizers, Neptune, Goodreads, Metareads, and Simon Schust for organizing this event and giving us this wonderful opportunity to connect with one of our great writers in our time. So once again, thank you, Annabelle. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.